There is a stack of white wooden boxes sitting at the edge of my vegetable garden in rural Ohio right now. No wires running to them, no gadgets, no thermometers, just plain pine boards. And a flat lid with a rock on top. This morning in the cold, they were silent. But come the first warm afternoon of spring, those boxes will pour out thousands of honeybees who will work every squash blossom, every apple tree, and every row of beans on this place and hand me somewhere around 60 pounds of honey apiece for the trouble. I bought my first beekeeping starter kit years ago, the modern way, with a glossy catalog and a credit card, and I lost those bees before February was out. Then my Amish neighbor Daniel walked me through his bee yard, and I realized most of what that catalog sold me was solving problems the bees never had. Today I am going to walk you through starting beekeeping the way my Amish neighbors do it. Step by step, from a bare patch of grass to your first jar of honey, and stay with me all the way to the end. Because the reason Daniel's bees come through an Ohio winter alive when so many first-year hives starve or freeze comes down to one specific thing that happens inside. That wooden box on the coldest nights of January. Nobody at the bee supply store ever explained it to me, and it is the whole difference between keeping bees and buying them over and over. So, I'm Bill, though most folks online know me as Backyard Bill. I have spent 30 years learning hard lessons on a little piece of land in rural Ohio, a good many of them the expensive way, with a rototiller and a shelf of chemicals I could not pronounce. My greatest teachers live right across the fence in the Amish community I am blessed to call my neighbors, and most of what I know about bees I learned standing quietly in my friend Daniel's bee yard. Out of respect for my neighbors, I change small details when I tell their stories. And I will do that today too. Now, years before any of that, I did what nearly every beginner does. I ordered the deluxe starter bundle. It ran me close to $500 once the shipping was paid, and it came with plastic gadget feeders, a fancy ventilated suit, and a booklet that treated the hive like a small machine that needed constant adjusting. So I adjusted it constantly. I opened that hive every few days like I was checking a furnace. I fed when the booklet said feed, and my bees dwindled all fall and died in the snow anyway. When I finally told Daniel about it, he did not laugh at me, though he had every right to. He said his family keeps bees the way they keep any livestock. You give the animal a good place, honest food, and shelter from the wind, and then mostly you leave it be and watch. It's not about fighting nature. It's about working with it. That one sentence turned my whole approach around with bees and with everything else in the garden. So today I will give you the 7 steps in order exactly the way I would set up a brand new bee yard this spring. And hold on to that question about January, because every single step we take today is quietly building toward it. Now, before we set the first hive stand, I want to be straight with you about something. Bees are one piece of a bigger picture, because a bee yard only thrives when the garden around it is alive and healthy. And I wrote that bigger picture down in a book called The 30-Day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. It is the complete old world system I learned from my Amish neighbors for building a garden that defends itself from pests without chemicals, laid out as a 30-day protocol any home gardener can follow, one day at a time. It covers the 5 reasons modern gardens attract pests, and Amish gardens don't, the 5 defense layers, the setup week and then the full month, week by week, from kill nothing, build everything, all the way to the self-defending garden. There is a whole section on building the ecosystem that these bees and the other beneficial insects live in, plus the deeper skills, seed saving, hand tools, and preserving the harvest. It is 117 pages, and right now it is $17, marked down from $47. That is less than 1 bottle of the spray I used to buy twice a season. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right, let's go stand in the grass where your first hive is going to live. Step 1, choose the place before you ever choose the bees. When Daniel looks at a spot for a hive, he is not thinking about what is convenient for him. He's thinking like a bee. First, morning sun. Face the entrance south or southeast so the early light hits the front door of the hive. That warmth dries the dew and gets the workers flying an hour earlier than a shaded hive. And over a summer, that extra hour every day adds up to real honey. Second, a windbreak. In Ohio, the killing wind comes out of the north and the west. So set the hive where a fence line, a shed wall, or a row of evergreens stands between the hive and that wind. Third, Get it up off the ground. Build or buy a simple stand about 18 inches high. That is 18 inches, roughly knee height, enough to keep the bottom board dry and out of reach of skunks, and enough to save your back on inspection days. Fourth, water. Bees need water within about 100 feet, or they will go find your neighbor's swimming pool instead. A bird bath filled with small stones works fine. The stones give the bees a dry place to stand while they drink. And one more small thing while you are setting that stand. Make the hive level side to side, then tip the whole thing forward toward the entrance about 1 inch. Just 1 inch. It looks like nothing. Come January, I will show you why. That little tilt matters more than almost anything else you do today. Step 2. The equipment, and this is where the old way saves you real money. Here is the whole list Daniel would give a beginner. 2 plain pine boxes per hive, the standard 10-frame deep size with 10 wooden frames in each. A simple bottom board underneath, an inner cover, and a flat telescoping lid on top. A veil for your face, a pair of leather gloves, a smoker, and a hive tool, which is just a small flat pry bar. That is the entire outfit. No electronic monitors, no plastic gadget feeders, no ventilated spacesuit, priced piece by piece. That list runs somewhere around $200 per hive, and less than that if you are handy with a hammer and build the boxes from pine yourself, because the plans are simple and the joints are square. Compare that to the $500 I spent on my first failed kit. Now, one piece of advice that sounds like it doubles the cost but is worth every penny. Start with 2 hives, not 1. 2 hives, not 1. With a single hive, you have no way of knowing whether what you see is normal. With 2 sitting side by side in the grass, you can compare traffic at the entrances, and if one colony loses its queen, you can borrow a frame of eggs from the strong one and let them raise a new queen themselves. Like Daniel keeps his hives in pairs and rows for exactly that reason. One of anything on a farm is a gamble. Step 3, getting your bees. And please hear me on this one, because this is where I went wrong the first time. The catalog will sell you a package of bees shipped up from the deep south, 3 pounds of bees and a queen in a screen box, bred in a climate that has never seen an Ohio February. What Daniel taught me to buy instead is called a nucleus colony, and most beekeepers just say knock. A nucleus colony is a small working hive. 5 frames of drawn honeycomb with brood in the cells, a few thousand workers, and a laying queen who is already proven. Best of all, you buy it from a beekeeper in your own county, which means those bees carry local stock that has already survived your winters. Finding one is easier than you think. Ask at the feed store, ask at the county fair, look up your county beekeeping club, because nearly every county has one, and the older members there will talk your ear off in the best way. Expect to pay somewhere between $150 and $200 for a good local nucleus in spring. It costs a bit more than the mailed package, and it is worth double. Step 4, the install in your first month. Pick a calm, warm afternoon, somewhere above 60 degrees with the sun out. Set the nucleus box right beside your empty hive. Put on your veil. Give the smoker 2 or 3 gentle puffs at the entrance, because cool white smoke settles the bees. Now lift out the first frame slowly, holding it over the hive. Set it into the new box. Move the rest of the frames the same way, one at a time. Keep the frames in the exact same order they came in. The brood frames stay together in the middle. Fill the remaining space with your empty frames. Set the inner cover on, set the lid on top of that, and then do the hardest thing in all of beekeeping, walk away. Leave that hive completely alone for 1 full week. 7 days, no peeking. The colony needs quiet to settle, and every time you open the box, you set them back a day. Somewhere between day 7 and day 10, go in for your first look on another warm, calm afternoon. You are looking for one thing above all, eggs. A fresh egg looks like a tiny grain of rice standing on end in the bottom of a cell, and you may need reading glasses and full sun over your shoulder to see them. I sure do. Eggs mean your queen is alive and working, and that is all you need to know. Close up and let them be. Take your time with all of this. There is no rush in a bee yard, and the bees can tell when you are hurrying. Step 5, learn to read the hive from the outside, because this is the part almost nobody teaches anymore, and it is the heart of how my neighbors keep bees. Every morning, I take what I call the morning walk through the garden, and the bee yard is the first stop. I do not open anything. I stand a few feet to the side of the entrances with my coffee, and I just watch for 2 minutes. Bees landing with fat loads of yellow and orange pollen packed on their back legs mean there are babies being fed inside, which means the queen is laying. Steady, purposeful traffic in and out means the colony is content. A few bees standing at the entrance facing outward are guards, and guards on duty mean the hive is strong enough to defend itself. What you do not want to see is frantic fighting at the entrance, bees wrestling and rolling off the landing board, because that is robbing a strong hive, stealing from a weak one, and it means that weak hive needs your help the same day. 2 minutes at the entrance tells you 80% of what an inspection would without disturbing a soul. That handles the daily watching. But it leaves you with the question of when to actually open the boxes. So let's take that next. Step 6, through the summer, open the hive for a real inspection every 2 to 3 weeks, and no more often than that, every 2 to 3 weeks. That is the rhythm. Pick warm, calm, sunny afternoons when most of the foragers are out working the clover. Never open a hive in rain and cold or in the evening, because that is when everybody is home and nobody's in the mood for company. Inside, you are checking 3 things. Is there queen sign, meaning eggs and young larvae? Is there room, meaning empty comb for the queen to lay in and space for nectar to come in? And are there swarm cells, which look like peanut shells hanging from the bottom edges of the frames, and which tell you the colony is getting ready to split itself and fly away? The old rule Daniel taught me covers most of it. Give them room before they need it. When the top box is about 7 frames full, add the next box. Stay ahead of the bees and they will stay home. Now, one honest word about a modern problem, the varroa mite, a little parasite that came to this country in the 80s and troubles every beekeeper, plain and English alike. Strong local stock and healthy colonies are your best foundation against it. And this is exactly where that county bee club earns its keep, because the local folks will show you how to check your own hives and what works in your own area. A good beekeeper is humble enough to keep learning. And I say that as a man who had to learn humility the hard way. Now remember, that one specific thing I told you happens inside the hive in January. Every choice you make from here forward is either setting it up or heading it off, which brings us to the harvest. Step 7, the harvest rule, and this may be the most Amish thing in this whole video. By late summer, a good first-year colony in Ohio will have filled its bottom 2 boxes and maybe started on a third. Here is the rule. You harvest only the surplus, the honey above and beyond what the bees themselves need. And in Ohio, that means you leave the colony 60 pounds of capped honey for winter. 60 pounds. That is 60, not 30. And the difference is life and death, because a full deep box of honey weighs right around that mark. In practice, the rule is simple. The bottom 2 boxes belong to the bees. Anything above that belongs to you. Some years, especially the first year, that means you take 1 frame or none at all, and you stand there feeling a little cheated. Daniel would tell you that a beekeeper who robs his bees in September buys sugar in October and buys new bees in April, and he would be right. And the store-bought sugar is a poor trade anyway, for a reason you are about to hear, because that number 60 is not about generosity. It is the first half of the January answer I promised you at the very start, and the second half is what we do right now. So here it is, the thing that happens inside that white pine box on the coldest nights of January, the thing that killed my first hive and kills most first-year hives in this country. It is not the cold. Honeybees handle cold that would stop your heart. When the temperature drops, the whole colony pulls into a tight ball called the cluster, about the size of a basketball, with the queen in the warm center, and the bees on the outside shiver their flight muscles to make heat, taking turns rotating inward like penguins on the ice. The fuel for all that shivering is the honey you left them. But here is what nobody at the supply store told. Burning honey makes water, the same way your own breath fogs a cold window. All winter long, the cluster is breathing warm, damp air upward. That moist air rises to the cold underside of the lid, and there it condenses. And on the coldest nights of January, it literally rains ice water back down onto the cluster. And a wet bee in the cold is a dead bee. Dry cold, the bees shrug off. Wet cold kills the hive. Once you understand that, everything my neighbors do in the fall stops looking like folklore and starts looking like plain physics. First, they leave real capped honey, our 60 pounds, instead of feeding thin sugar syrup late in the fall, because capped honey is dry fuel. While late syrup carries water, the bees have no warm weather left to dry out, so it adds to the very moisture that is trying to kill them. Second, that 1-inch forward tilt you built into your stand back in step 1. Any water that condenses on the bottom board runs downhill to the entrance and drips harmlessly out the front door instead of pooling under the cluster. And third, a dry roof. Daniel sets a shallow box of pine wood shavings above the inner cover on every hive, a simple cushion of shavings that soaks up the rising moisture the way a wool cap soaks up sweat. And a small notch up top lets the dampness breathe away. Honey below, shavings above, tilt in the middle, windbreak at their backs. That is the whole winter system, and not one piece of it plugs in or gets sprayed on. The coal was never the enemy. The water was And once I understood that, I stopped losing hives. And that is the heart of what Daniel taught me about bees and about everything else growing on this place. The garden was never supposed to be a war, and the answers are almost always this simple and this old. That is exactly why I wrote the 30-day Amish Pest-Proof Garden Protocol. 117 pages of the complete system my neighbors taught me for a garden that defends itself without chemicals, the 30 days laid out week by week, plus seed saving, hand tools, preserving the harvest, and the mindset behind all of it. It is $17 right now, down from $47, which is less than one season's worth of the sprays it replaces a kilo, and it does not run out in June. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So that is the whole road, the sunny spot, the simple pine boxes, the local bees, the patient first month, the morning walk, the honest harvest, and a dry hive in January. Did your folks or your grandparents garden without chemicals? Tell me one thing they did below. Those are exactly the methods we're saving. I read every single one. Next time, I am going to show you the border row Daniel plants around every one of his vegetable gardens. A living fence of flowers that feeds these very bees and pulls in the pest-eating insects all summer long. And the one common flower he will never allow inside that fence. Work with nature, not against it, and I'll see you in the garden.